there is a lot of misconceptions around tech careers that AI is going to replace all the jobs in tech. So that's something that we need to be clear with young people about. And what I really try to highlight in this book and when I talk to young people and my own daughter is that you don't have to pick a thing and work towards it. A lot of people, particularly young people, think that they have to do computer science A-level and at degree level to be able to get into tech. And less than 10% tech workforce have a computer science or IT related career.
From the city of Peaky Blinders, Birmingham, England, I would like to introduce you to Paddy Danda.
As the world becomes more automated and the robots take over, it's imperative that we build the right human skills for the future. So pull up a chair, grab a samosa or two, and make yourself very uncomfortable. Dear friend, thank you so much for joining me for another episode of the Superpower School podcast. I'm your host, Paddy Danda, and on this episode, I have a young lady who has been a good friend of mine for a number of years, and she does some amazing work in the BA community. She's just written a new book, and I'm so excited to have her on the show today, Christina Lovelock. Hey, Tina, as I call you. So how are you doing?
Hi, Paddy. It's great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. Tina, how long has it taken us to get you on the show? I mean,
We've been talking about it a while, probably over a year or so. So, yeah, I'm really pleased to be here now.
I'm kind of glad we did wait a year because that allowed you some time to write this new book.
Yeah,
And so we've got
absolutely.
something
Yeah.
really cool to talk about.
New topics to talk about.
Excellent. And so I always start off every episode with which superpower would my guest like to bring to this particular episode?
Now, I think I share this superpower with a lot of business analysts, and what I'm going to talk about is curiosity. I think business analysis is really fueled by curiosity. We want to know how systems and processes work. We want to know the perspectives of all of the stakeholders involved. And you have to be curious to be able to investigate all of those things and analyze all of those situations. And curiosity is really what's fueled a lot of the things that I've done in my career as well, like writing books, like speaking at conferences, because I really love to learn. And I think business analysis and IT in general really does, has a lot of opinions. There's a lot of opinions. We try and say that we're data-driven, but we're not. We're very opinion-driven. But I think being curious and staying curious just a little bit longer helps us to avoid jumping to solutions, helps us to avoid judgment, and helps us to get to better outcomes and better solutions for our stakeholders.
Oh, I love that. Yes. I think a lot of BAs were those annoying little kids when they were younger going, why is the sky blue? And why is this? And why is that?
Yeah.
Brilliant. And now my kids do that to me. And I'm like, I don't have the answer.
Well, I studied physics at university, so I should have the answers. When my daughter asks me all those questions, about how the world works and why is the sky blue, I sometimes can answer it, but sometimes have to Google it.
Oh, there we go. And so, Christina, you've been working on this book. What's the title of the book and who's it aimed at?
So the book is Careers in Tech, Data and Digital, and the subtitle is From Education to Employment. So it's really about aimed at early career professionals and students who are still making their decisions about what careers they want to pursue in future. And what I realised is that all the narrative around getting more young people, and particularly young women, into tech is focused on coding. And I really wanted to highlight the idea that getting into tech doesn't have to mean learning how to code. Most people in tech don't write code. There's this whole range of jobs that require curiosity, collaboration, creativity and communication, and we just don't talk about those roles enough. So instead of trying to convince people that they want to join coding clubs and learn more about coding, I think we should focus on this wider range of roles and try to make lots more different and a wider range of people realise that there are roles in tech for them, probably roles that they've never heard of. So that's what I was really kind of driving at with this book, shining a spotlight on that wider range of roles in tech.
And as we were talking just before we kicked off, you and I have something in common. We both have 15-year-old daughters, which I had no idea you had a daughter of 15. So it's a really interesting age. Like my daughter the other day was talking to my wife and saying just how confused she was about her future career. She was talking about how she wanted to go into like a creative career, but now she's seeing everything happening with AI, that it's kind of becoming something that she feels may become obsolete, right? Which is such a shame for her to think like that.
Yeah, there's a lot of worry, and I think there is a lot of misconceptions around tech careers that AI is going to replace all the jobs in tech. So that's something that we need to be clear with young people about. But it's a really high pressure age, I think, to make these decisions about your future, what career path are you going to follow. And what I really try to highlight in this book and when I talk to young people and my own daughter is that you don't have to pick a thing and work towards it. And particularly with a sector like tech, there's so much opportunity. It's just about making the next best decision from where you are now. You don't have to think, right, I want to be a software tester and just kind of do all the roles that lead to that. Because the role of software tester might change. There's going to be new roles in tech emerging. So actually having your eyes open to the sector and not being too hung up about specific job titles and specific roles, I think is really important. And the way that we talk about careers to young people, I think they have to pick, they have to be on the perfect career for them. But I actually try and take the pressure off and say, there's no such thing as the perfect job. And actually, all of us try and mold the job that we're in to be more suitable for our skills and interests and give us opportunities to develop and grow. So I don't think there's any such thing as the perfect job. So I think our role as parents is to try take the pressure off a little bit and say, look, you don't have to just pick one thing. You can try different things. It might not work out, but all of those choices that you make along the way are going to help you make decisions in the long run.
Oh, great advice there. I remember when I was sort of at that stage, and it was actually when I just done my A-levels, because I chose very diverse A-levels. I think I did computing, sociology, and law, because I had no idea what I wanted to do. And then it came to picking my university degree, and it was literally a flip of the coin. Somebody just said to me, well, why don't you think about tech? And I was like, oh, I don't know, I'm not very good at tech. And I had that same fear about coding because I struggled with my software engineering on my A-level. And then I can't even remember what pushed me to it. I think it was because the university was local and they had a course that looked half decent, and I just went for it. But like you say, like tech is so diverse. There's just so many aspects to it. I know in the book you've covered lots of diverse roles. What are some of those? And I guess, do you have some favorites as well?
Interesting. So, I mean, you raised a point there about you did A-level computer science. A lot of people, particularly young people, think that they have to do computer science A-level and at degree level to be able to get into tech. And less than 10% tech workforce have a computer science or IT-related career. But that's not known outside of the IT sector. We don't talk about that. So people who have studied science, arts, humanities, they don't know that there's a route to tech for them. So some of the roles that I covered are some of the kind of newer roles like service designer, UX, DevOps roles, which again don't get that much airtime outside of the tech sector. I think most of those roles would not be familiar to a lot of young people. DevOps is a really interesting area, and because it combines both kind of the operational side, the kind of maintenance sides of keeping the lights on in tech, with doing new things and pushing out new code and releasing new something. So I think it's a really interesting role for people who like variety and don't like to be doing the same thing all the time. So that's a really interesting role, one that stood out to me. I really wanted to focus on some leadership roles because we don't talk about tech leadership as a career very often. So I interviewed both a CIO and a CTO to talk about their journeys into tech. And that was really interesting. And how at a certain point in your tech career, your tech stack knowledge and your technical landscape knowledge is not really what you're relying on anymore. It's really your relationship building, negotiation, facilitation, line management skills, which is quite difficult to gain those skills sometimes in tech. I think it's important to show people that there are these senior roles that you can go for in tech, that it's not just technical roles that are to do with software, hardware, networks, and that there's this whole range of roles. So those are some of my favourites.
Oh, I like that. And service design, you mentioned there, that's an area that I've been quite intrigued with more recently, because I have a lot of friends and ex-colleagues who were business analysts, and many of them now are kind of transitioning into some of these other roles like service design. Could you just explain what a service designer does for anybody that hasn't come across that
Yeah,
one
so
before?
service design is really about thinking about the customer experience and designing the end-to-end experience that those customers are going to have when they interact with us. And a service could just be a kind of narrowly scoped system, but more likely it's going to be the whole interaction with the organization, from having to deal with the customer services department, for example. So just not the bit where you're, for example, ordering something online, but the whole end-to-end experience of ordering something, something being delivered to you, and then any kind of follow-up interactions with that organization. So it's really about customer centricity, and thinking about not just a system perspective, but all of the people who are involved in delivering that service, which is going to include both the employees of your organization and customers and other stakeholders like partners and so on.
And the book, which I was skimming through just the other day, so it was really visual, and you have lots of interviews from actual people who are doing these roles out there in the field. Why were those two aspects important for you? Because, as you know, I'm a big fan of visuals, so was something that stood out particularly for me.
Yeah, and the illustrator was your friend and mine, Grant Wright, who is a brilliant visual thinker, your partner in crime. So it was so important to me to have visual aspects to the book, because I find that really engaging. I think that's a really good way of demonstrating concepts, but also helping you to remember concepts. And I think, if you read something as a block of text or a list of bullet points, it just doesn't go in the same way as if you look at an engaging visual. So that was really important to me, so that people could actually engage with some of the concepts in the book and remember them. The interviews was really important, because I've done quite a lot of different roles in tech. I've worked with different organizations, but it's only a tiny proportion of the roles that actually exist in tech. And I wanted to hear from people who are actually doing those roles. And I started off by asking everybody the same question, which is, how do you describe your role to your friends and family? So that was really interesting to see what level of detail, what kind of language, how they avoided jargon in trying to describe their roles. And I've worked in tech a long time, which means I've got a lot of preconceptions and probably some biases about certain roles. And I didn't want that to cloud some of the information that I wanted to put in the book. I wanted to make sure that I was hearing from people that genuinely are doing these roles, what path they took to get to them, what other roles they felt were related to their role, and what skills they were using. And that's really important, that was coming from actual practitioners of that role, not just my perception or projection of what's going on in some of those roles.
And so I was going to challenge you a little bit now, Tina. I had something in mind I thought which would be quite useful for people out there. Are you ready for a challenge?
Absolutely.
Always ready for a challenge. Okay. So imagine I'm sat at home and I'm thinking about a career in tech, and I'm super creative. I love to create things. I'm artistic, but I'm not sure what sort of roles would be suitable for my skill set in tech. What would be your recommendation for me?
Well, one thing that I recommend, and it's actually included in the signpost in the book, is that the BCS have a careers quiz that you can go in and you can answer questions about yourself, things that you like, your skills, your preferences. And it actually gives you a short list of roles that you might want to investigate. So exactly as you said, if you're a creative visual person, you kind of reflect that in your answers, and it will suggest some roles further, which you can then use the book and other resources to investigate those roles. And I think it's really important to give young people and people who are outside of tech and maybe thinking about getting into tech some roots in and some visibility of these different roles. One thing that I've noticed as tech professionals, we're not great at talking to our friends and family and colleagues about what we do. If people ask us the question, what do you do for a living? So many people just say, oh, I work in tech, and hope that there's no follow-up questions. And I worked for the NHS for a long time. And during that period, 12 years, I would just say I work for the NHS and not elaborate at all and not mention tech. And I think we're doing the whole sector a disservice by doing that. We should be taking those opportunities to talk to people about our roles, say what we like about them, how we got into them, and particularly young people. And something I really encourage all tech professionals to do is to find even just an hour a year, go and speak at a university, a college, or a school that's local to you. Most schools have some kind of career days or panels where they invite people in. There's also various charities up and down the country that facilitate this, so people aren't kind of cold calling schools and say, do you want me to come in and talk about my role? Because I don't think we should be leaving this to teachers and career professionals. They've got such a lot on. They don't know what all the different roles in tech are. We do, and we've got a real responsibility to be advocates for our roles and talk about them and inspire the next generation of tech professionals.
Oh, well said. And I had this exact experience the other day. My daughter did say she met with a careers advisor, and I think she walked away quite disappointed because all she was really told was to go to a website and kind of do it herself. And she was expecting a little bit more in terms of advice, I guess, and she didn't quite get that.
That's such a shame, because there are absolutely brilliant career professionals out there, but I think it is variable. Some schools have dedicated career practitioners. For some schools, it's a side job for a teacher. Their main thing is being a teacher, but they also have this additional responsibility of being a careers lead. I think there is such pressure on the system at the moment that it is really difficult for schools to provide a good service to all students in this area, which is why I think tech professionals need to be stepping up and helping to fill this space and inform the people that we know that we're going to need to recruit into our professions in future.
And if I put myself again in those shoes of a 15, 16-year-old, sat there thinking, well, look, I'm about to do my GCSEs, or I've just finished them. I should really start to think seriously about my career. And all their friends around them have a really clear view of what they want to do. They're all really sort of set on these careers. One wants to be a doctor, or another one wants to be a vet, etc. And I'm sat there thinking, I have no idea. What advice would you have for someone like that?
That's really common. And actually, it's good to not lock into a particular thing too early. And I'd also say it's never too late to get into tech. So whatever you do at A-level, whatever you do at the university, if you go to university, there's still routes into tech for you. So you've never locked yourself out of a career in tech. So I've seen a couple of case studies recently of somebody who was a window cleaner who's transitioned into tech through an apprenticeship. And also at least 2 teachers who have got into different tech roles after training and being a teacher for several years. So wherever you are in your journey of studying, or at some point in your career, it is never too late to consider transitioning into tech. But the point about feeling like all your friends know what they want to do and how are you going to make choices, I think it's just really important to think about what you're good at and what you enjoy, because that's what's going to allow you to excel. If you take subjects that you think, I hate this, but I think it's going to be useful, you're never going to get the grades and you're never going to really have a passion for that subject. So I think it's important to think and be honest with yourself about what you enjoy doing, where you think you're going to have the opportunity to achieve the best results. And what I would kind of slightly balance that with is think about what you're cutting off by particular subjects that you might not be taking. So, for example, if you do think you might want to be a doctor, then you absolutely need to be studying science and maths at A-level. But if there aren't particular routes that you want to keep open, then just concentrate on the things that you're good at and that you enjoy, because that's going to take you furthest in life.
And again, great advice. So thank you for that. Now, you mentioned it earlier about the fact that if you want to become, for example, a software tester, don't just do all of the steps that you think are needed to get to that and then beat yourself up about not following that process. There's this sort of term that people often use, which is squiggly careers,
Mm,
and there's a great podcast on it as well.
mm.
So, what does that mean? Because I have a lot of guests that I usually ask them, like, what made you get into the thing that you're doing now, and what was your journey? And it's never a straightforward linear line.
No, absolutely. Love the term squiggly careers. I talk about it in the book. And I think the idea of a career ladder is a really outdated metaphor because it's so much, it's very predetermined and it makes you feel like you're failing. So if you're not taking a step up the ladder, if you're not increasing your salary or increasing your responsibility with every move that you make, makes you feel that you're not progressing up the ladder. If we do away with the ladder metaphor and think about squiggly careers, it allows us to think much more widely, think about making decisions which is about trying things, experimenting. Do I like this? Do I want to move in this direction? Oh, actually, that's not quite what I thought it was going to be. I won't do that. I'll do something else. It encourages experimentation. It allows us to explore opportunities, things that we never thought would come along. If we just lock in and think, right, I'm a software tester and I'm just can only apply for senior software tester and then lead software tester, it really limits our thinking and our opportunities. And tech, more so than a lot of sectors, does have this opportunity to try different things, to learn different technologies, to work in different types of environments and different sizes and shapes of organisation. It allows us to cross over the barrier from public to private sector, also third sector and charity sector, because every organisation needs tech professionals. So I think not looking into a particular job title, being open to opportunities that are around us, not worrying too much how it looks or what other people might think of some of the decisions that we make as well, and not being driven by fear in our decisions on our career path. And what I really loved about the book is that people that I interviewed were really happy to talk about failures and decisions that they made that didn't work out quite how they expected. Because a lot of people that we hold up as kind of career role models are people who seem to have made every excellent logical step on that career ladder. And actually, most people are just trying to make the best decisions that they can, seizing opportunities when they come along. And as you said, a lot of your guests have taken kind of winding paths to get to where they are. I think it's really important that we highlight that to young people.
Yeah, no, definitely. And here's the thing. I think as parents, Tina, I don't know if you find this, but when you're giving career advice to your own kids, like it just falls on deaf ears because they see you not as that kind of, what can you say, that credible person who's going to give them great career advice. They just see you as a parent. And so it can be
Yeah.
really difficult when you're trying to sort of advise your own kids, isn't
Yeah.
it? That's a really
And
difficult
it's
one.
hard to not try and live vicariously through them as well. And you not kind of think, oh, I wish I'd done this at A level, or I wish I'd studied this at university. So maybe you should do that. And to really listen to them and ask them good questions and answer questions honestly about how we made our choices and what worked out and what maybe didn't work out quite so well.
And look, there's a few different paths to getting into a tech career. You alluded to degrees, but you don't always need a tech degree. There's lots of other subjects you can absolutely do. And you mentioned there, only 10% of tech professionals come from a tech background. I had no idea.
Yeah.
That's like amazing.
Absolutely.
And we also have apprenticeships as well. Could you throw a bit of light on apprenticeships for if anyone's thinking about, well, is that the right thing for them? And like, how big are apprenticeships at the moment?
So the digital apprenticeships is a really interesting space at the moment. There's lots of really exciting apprenticeships in things like data science, AI, also business analysis, software development, software testing. So it's a real growth area in terms of apprenticeships. And a lot of organizations are interested in a kind of grow your own strategy. So they're doing things like implementing apprenticeships, implementing graduate schemes, because it's been quite difficult to recruit experienced professionals in a lot of different roles. So it's great to see that commitment from organisations saying, yes, we do want to invest in new talent and have those early career roles available. The digital apprenticeships go from level 3 to level 7. Level 7 is the equivalent of a master's degree level. And level 3, I think, is equivalent to 2 A levels. Level 4 is anything above level 4 is known as a higher apprenticeship. There is no upper age limit on apprenticeships, so you don't have to be a young apprentice that we might kind of traditionally associate with the term apprenticeship, so they are open to anyone. And it's a job first, which means that you really have to not worry too much about the training provider. For example, universities provide a lot of apprenticeships, because what you're doing is really picking an employer. So it's important to make sure that that they're a good fit for you as an organisation. And it is a big commitment. It's having a full-time job as well as this commitment to study. But it's really great to see a lot of young people are considering that route. There's loads of benefits associated with going to university, but there's also benefits associated with not following that route and thinking about an apprenticeship instead. And a lot of young people do seem to realise that they've got this multiple paths open to them and are open to the idea of investigating apprenticeships. And the digital apprenticeships is really one that I advise young people to have a look at, because there is so much variation available.
Yeah, and I recently, with the company I work for by day, we launched the digital product management apprenticeship. And I was like so over the moon, because all this time when I would talk to people who were in a product manager role, I'd ask them, like, how did you get into the role? And there was never a clear pathway. It was always by accident, or they were in a place at the right time, etc.
Yeah.
So that was great to see that that's
Yeah.
also being put out there.
And it's the same with business analysis, that there hasn't been a clear route in. And that's not a sustainable talent pipeline for what we know are really great careers, things like business analysis, product management, architecture. How are you supposed to become a solution architect? Well, you basically have to do loads of different jobs in tech that are called all sorts of different things, and then eventually kind of make your way into architecture. That's not sustainable. We need jobs that people can see, that they can aim for, and they understand the path that they can take to get into those roles in tech.
In terms of the future, we've got AI. Things are becoming more tech oriented. How important are tech careers for the future? And again, if somebody's sat at home thinking, well, should I get into tech? I'm not sure. From your perspective, what do you see the demands in the future for this industry?
Yeah, so I think it's a really interesting time in tech. Roles are changing and new roles are emerging. I think the sustainability area and sustainable tech is definitely going to be a growth area. So I think we're going to see more roles that are focused on sustainability. I also think we're going to continue to see an increase in roles around security, because we know that is really important. We know that the data that an organisation has is absolutely vital asset for that organisation that they need to keep safe. So I think there's going to be more emphasis on security and sustainability and tech roles in those two areas. And tech is cyclic. Things become fashionable and unfashionable. At the moment, it's quite fashionable to have SaaS, software as a service, and cloud storage. I think that we might start to see changes in that. We might start to see organisations re-emphasising the need to store their data on premises, and that means we'll need different types of tech professionals again around infrastructure, storage and security. I think it's going to be even more important to think about tech as a differentiator and using it to differentiate our entire customer experience. So those roles that we mentioned about UX and UI and service design, I think those are going to continue to be popular roles in tech. But I think it's really hard to predict. And I think in 5 and 10 years, there's going to be so many new roles in tech, which is why I think we need to encourage young people to not just pick a single job title. I did an event with some students, and they were computer science students, and they'd never heard of the role of software tester. So they knew about software development. They knew about testing their own code. They didn't know that there was a dedicated role around testing software. So it's really interesting, the information that we put in the hands of young people to help them make decisions about their career.
And Tina, I know we're fast approaching time, so I've got a final question, which is a fun question. And I didn't give you any warning on this, so I'm going to see what you come up with. If you could have any superpower to abolish something in the world of work, like remove it, and we'd do it for 24 hours because we like a pilot, what would that be?
That's so interesting. So something that's been on my mind at the moment is imposter syndrome. I've been in a lot of meetings, forums, events, conferences where imposter syndrome is talked about. And it's talked about as if it's kind of inevitable that we have this feeling. And so many people feel imposter syndrome for the roles that they're in. But I think we need to concentrate less on the individuals and the individual fears and worries that people have about not being good enough, and try to design workplaces that allow everybody to thrive and everybody to feel that they can offer their best to their organisation, that they're not plagued with self-doubt. So what I would get rid of is imposter syndrome for 24 hours and see what impact that has on people in their workplaces.
Oh, I love it. I think I saw your LinkedIn post on that as well earlier today, which seemed to be getting a lot of engagement. So yeah, it seems to be something that's very close to many people's hearts. Yeah, I love that. And Tina, if you could just let us know the name of the book once more, where can people get it from, and how do people get in touch with you?
Yep, so I'm really happy to connect on LinkedIn, Christina Lovelock. I'd be very delighted to connect. The book is Careers in Tech, Digital and Data, and it's available from Amazon, other bookshops, and it can also be ordered via the BCS bookshop, and there is a discount for BCS members.
Oh, amazing. Thank you so much, Tina. Always a pleasure talking to you, and I'm definitely going to my daughter listen to this episode because I think she needs it. So thank you once again.
Brilliant. Thank you, Paddy.
It's the end of another episode. Thank you so much for listening. Please do connect with me via LinkedIn and drop me a message and let me know your favorite takeaways from the episode. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Superpower School newsletter so that you can be notified of all future episodes. Simply visit the website www.superpowers.school. Thank you once again.